Welcome to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Hey, that's me. Hi, and welcome to Positive Talk. Our show features the best positive stories and people from around the globe as we endeavor to answer the universal question of why am I here and what is my purpose? Understanding that can change everything, and knowing your greatness is fundamental to living your best life. So join us right now as together we work to create the adventure of our lifetime. And welcome everybody to Positive Talk on the Brushwood Media Network. My name is Kevin McDonald, and thank you for being here. And we've got a great show for you today. We've got a tremendous author, and we're going to the stars. We're going to a different place, and it all comes from the mind of Jordan Broody Broody, excuse me, and that's Broody. And we're going to be talking to him about his book and what prompted the book and what got him going and all that kind of stuff. So, Jordan, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, as it were.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about you a little bit, my friend. You are an author, and you are you've written a book, and tell me the book title again so I don't screw it up the first time.
That's right. It's Arconus.
I knew that, kind of. Arconus is a story about seeking the stars.
Yes. So the story is, kind of an interesting one in terms of, that there's going to be 3 volumes. So it's a saga. It's a story about a great hunter, a warrior that is, he was a warrior in a great war years ago, and he's a hunter right now, and it's part of a sacred profession for him to be on these hunts as part of his profession. And ultimately, he kind of starts stumbling on this ancient information, and it starts to uncover a dark prophecy. And because of that, kind of gets him thinking about this dark prophecy, and he ultimately has to go against his hunts to try to stop this dark prophecy from coming true. And ultimately, he becomes a traitor because he has to leave a sacred profession, almost like a samurai. You know what I mean? They have a very sacred act in terms of what they do and what they can't do. And for him, it's very important that he takes care of this because the galaxy ultimately is dying, and is the only one that can help save the galaxy, but in turn has to become the hunted at the end of the day.
I've interviewed a lot of authors, but I've never interviewed anybody who's got the book and also has got the type of imagery that you have with the book, and also music that goes with the book as well. How did you put that all together? Was that the plan from the beginning?
Yeah. So, just a little bit of background. I've been a composer most of my life, since I was very young. I really like the works of John Williams and Hans Zimmer, and a lot of, you see those epic movies, on TV. That was something I grew up loving and wanting to do as a hobby, and that's what I've always done. So when I wrote this book, I wrote the music first, thinking about a story. So a lot of the time when writing music, I think of a situation, like maybe a warrior fighting or an emotional setting or whatever it may be. And I said, what'd be really interesting is to have a story to go along with it and make it synergistic. And that's kind of what I did.
So when did you start writing music?
Probably when I was about 5.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea what motivated you to do that?
My parents put me in front of a piano, and I kind of just started playing. And I never was one for reading music. I always wanted to just create music. So I guess it just happened. It just kind of, and then once I started, technology got better, and you got you get the garage bands on Apple, and you could really start using like different instruments. It just opened the doors.
I've always wondered because, I'm a little older than you, and my favorite band was the Beatles, and
Right.
they didn't know how to write music. They didn't know how to read music, but they came up with such wondrous composing or compositions. It's amazing to me how that happens. Have you ever wondered how that could happen?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's by memory and sound. You know, if you're just playing, like if you're playing with emotion and sound, and you kind of you're able to create certain harmonies that you can play through and remember, but you don't know how you got there. It's hard. It's kind of hard to explain. It's like it's maybe you're drawing something, but you know how to draw it, but if you ask to recreate it, maybe you can't. Sometimes the artists like that are able to draw things, but then they can't recreate it like the same way. So it's the same way with music. You know, we're able to hear it and feel it, but sometimes you can't read it. So it's interesting. So maybe that's just I'm in the same pathway as them, and it kind of worked out that way.
Is it kind of like an intuitive sense?
Yeah, I would say it's intuitive. It's definitely intuitive. Sitting down and hearing the different things come together and recording them, I think it's more of an intuition. So that's a great point that you made.
Well, because what they do, and what a lot of authors, a lot of musicians, poets, artists, they all depend upon their intuition. When you think of your intuition, where does it come from?
Right. For me, it's the stars. For me, it's science fiction. It's fantasy. I think about so when I'm writing something, I think of a situation. Let's think of a warrior like running down the hallway trying to escape his enemies, and he lands on a runway and he sees the antagonist at the other end, holding a great weapon in the air, challenging to fight him. I see that situation and I can feel the what type of music that could go with it. Or maybe he finds an ancient artifact that he's been seeking for such a long time. What kind of music would go along with that? And that's what kind of inspires me to either write or to compose.
And that falls in line with the great composers of all time. You mentioned John Williams. He does that, and I don't know what his process is. I haven't interviewed him, but I suspect it's he looks at the material and then he builds the song around what's happening on the screen. In the book, was that what you were kind of doing? What was happening in the pages of the book led to the music, or the music came first, though, right?
Yeah, and then it started to happen at the same time. So I wrote like half the album, and then as I started writing the story, I'd say, well, I wrote a song called Dark Moon, and all that is the theme song for the main character of the story. So as I was writing, I said, well, I kind of feel a certain way about this character. What is his adventure? What is his passions? And kind of put that for the music, and how does that sound together? Synergy. What is that synergy as they come together? And that's how it kind of played out.
Well, and the other thing that you do that is really interesting is the art that's in the book.
Thank
Now,
you.
did you do that yourself too?
So I had artists work on that. Some from Poland. It's very amazing what these artists can do. That's another thing. To be able to you can hire an artist now right off an app, which is amazing. I mean, years ago it was very difficult to try to find someone that can do this for you, but now it's with a click of a button you can have a situation and then they can put together this amazing art for you. So really it was situationally put together, and I had artists kind of pull that together, and it's amazing what they could create.
It surely seems like that would be a great movie, because it's a fantasy, and the fantasies are big right now,
Yeah.
and stuff, and it could be digitally done to some degree with actors' voices and that kind of thing. Has anybody approached you yet?
No, I am working on marketing with a company to market to music or to production companies. So I'm really excited about that because I know science fiction and fantasy is really big right now. And I think a story of this scale, I wrote these stories uh, to be played on the big screen. The way I wrote the stories scene by scene is you can turn that into a movie. I wanted this to be a movie one day. That was my life's goal. So, I mean, I'm hoping that our marketing will play out because that would be amazing because that's how I wrote the books.
Now, have you thought about writing a screenplay for them as well?
Well, it depends. I mean, if that's what they're looking for. From what I understand, uh, screenplays are great and books are also great. So it just depends on the situation. So, according to the marketing data that's out today, they like books because there's a lot of substance that comes along with it. And then they get like a team of people to kind of manipulate that into a screenplay.
I got some bad news.
Yeah.
That when that happens,
Yeah.
you're not a control freak, are you?
Well, I would want my to at least have some creative input into the story. I'm guessing you're going to say they're going to change aspects of it.
What happens that I've been told is that the producer gets involved and they like the story. They say, I like this, but we could change that. And then the director gets a hold of it and says, I like this, but we could change that. And so forth. So it can look completely different than what you started out with.
Yeah, that's kind of the risk, I guess, in terms of putting that out there. You know what I mean, and wanting to get it turned into a movie.
Well, but you can get paid at the same time. So that is if they pay you for the screenplay or they pay you for the book, then I guess you have to take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to do that as a profession. As being able to put something that I had creatively put together and use that as my career. I mean, to live your dream out is something amazing. So I guess I would have to take that risk.
Well, you've heard the Sylvester Stallone story, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, of how he had the screenplay Rocky, and and the whole thing. People wanted to buy it, but they didn't want him to be the actor. But he held out, and he finally got it done the way he wanted to get it done. So but at the same time, on your first book, you've got a trilogy coming. This could be a series of 5 or 7 or eight different movies that you could put together.
Yeah, I mean, I like you said, the possibilities are endless because if they've, I have 3 books. I don't know how many movies they can turn into that, but I always thought like maybe 3 movies, like a trilogy. But you're right, it could be a 5, 7. Who knows? That would be, it'd be
Well,
great.
there's a guy by the name of Gene Roddenberry,
Oh yeah.
and I'm sure you've heard of him.
Hmm.
And when he created Star Trek, and it ended up being a completely different world that he created. That's what you've done. So the possibilities, because it's in a different universe, a different world. The universe is dying, and it can have a whole different connotation of everything, can't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of opens up. That's why, like, I wrote it to be open ended in the terms of things can be added in the future. It's a whole universe that can be played with, and it could be books could be added, or you could add a prequel. So it gives it flexibility. I made the story flexible in that fact that universe could be, added upon.
Yeah. So you can create an entire. I don't know if you have the desire to do that, but you can create an entire world with different characters and different things and people coming and going. Is that in your mind? Is that something that you think that you would like to do?
I would love to do that. Yeah, I'm thinking about writing a lore book, which is kind of where you take the histories of all the characters and you kind of write them out. And you could go through and say, well, I want to learn more about this world from the story, and then in this book, it's almost like an encyclopedia where you can go in there and understand the histories behind it. So yeah, definitely.
Actually, that's brilliant. because you can then play off of that in a ton of ways. There are some books or some like the Klingon language. I understand. I haven't read and a lot about it, but I understand that the Klingon language in Star Trek, they actually wrote the language so that people could actually speak in Klingon,
Hmm.
and it would be understandable if you knew the language Klingon. So you could do that with this as well, with different planets and different civilizations and different ways of living and being. It would be interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And I love that. I love, I grew up on Star Trek and being able to understand, I bought all those books. They had encyclopedias for Star Trek, with the ships and the aliens and the languages. And I loved that, and I think that a lot of this stems from, it was such a creative time. You look back on Star Trek, and that was such a creative time in TV and being able to explore those worlds was just an amazing thing. So I agree.
Well, it's funny that if you go back to that original series, you'll see stuff that, like the communicator and even the phasers and there's a lot of and the computers. There's a lot of things that have come true through that. So a lot of people consider him a visionary. Would you consider yourself a visionary?
I don't. Me, that's a
I
great
know.
question. I
I
not.
know that that's
I'd say not right now. I mean, I think that if I'm able to make this happen and make this into a grand situation and great adventure for people to enjoy, uh, I don't even know if I can call myself that then. I mean, he really had an impact on the world. If I can make an impact on the world, that would be great. But for right now, I'm gonna have to say no.
well, I'm going to make a caveat there, and that is, you know your greatness, you know who you are, and you can, even if it only touches a segment of the population, you're still a visionary. You still wrote a complete universe with all the characters and all the different ideas and thoughts behind it. So yeah, I think visionary qualifies.
I appreciate that.
Well, you're welcome. Like I say, own it, baby, own
And
it.
I will. I'm gonna own it now.
And what now? Tell us a little bit about the plot of book one. I know he's a hunter and he's going out to try and save the universe. Is that kind of the beginning premise?
Yeah. So basically, in book one, kind of sets the stage, right? So they have,
Right.
he's in his profession. He stumbles on a weary character that he picks up along his journey. He has some trust issues, trying to trust this new companion that he picked up along the way. That's helping him on his adventures. He's away from his beloved, which is his wife. And she's a great huntress. She's a warrior herself, but she's retired. She lives at their home world, and he's away hunting. And once he uncovers this dark prophecy, it uplifts their entire life, the world that he loves. I mean, his world to him is extremely special. His blood runs deep into the soil. And it's a very sacred place. Their world is very sacred. So being able to have to leave that forever and fight this prophecy, because he's only part of a few within a long bloodline from ancient. They're called Zentaki, which is his race, that know about this prophecy, and he has to take it upon himself to uncover this and find these artifacts to try and stop this. And his greatest enemy, whose his name is Zin, is the antagonist of the story, and he's a ruthless warlord. Think of like a great space Viking. You know what I mean? He's a spiked helmet. He's very extremely strong. He's the greatest warrior in the galaxy, and that's his antagonist. His belief is that the galaxy's imbalanced, and he lost his family during a great war years ago. So he kind of went crazy a little bit, and he's trying to find these artifacts as well to try to save the galaxy from this imbalance. He's trying to fix the wrongs that he think happened long ago, but in turn, it's destroying the galaxy. So that's why the main character Darius is pitted against this individual because he's that's his antithesis. So what he's trying, they're both trying to save the galaxy for different reasons, except the question is who's right and who's wrong.
And by the way, we're talking with Jordan Broody, and he's written the book Arconus. Did I screw it up?
Nope, you got it perfect.
Arconus, and it is the story about a whole different place than here. And we need to take a break. And when we come back, I'm going to ask him: is the Force with him in this book? Is there a spiritual component that he's utilizing there, either good or evil? Evil. We will be back in just a moment. Please stay with us.
A lifetime of savings can disappear overnight. Millions of dollars are stolen every day from unsuspecting older adults by family members, caregivers, and trusted professionals. If you suspect financial exploitation, call the Elder Care Locator at 1-800-677-1116 or go online to the National Adult Protective Services Association to be connected with help in your area.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are interviewing Jordan Broody, and he's an author. He has written on, not only has he written a book, not only has he written music, not only is he contracted with people writing or with creating book art around the book, he's created a whole new universe. I wanted to ask you, in your universe, is there spiritual components with it, either positive or negative? Like in Star Wars, you have "May the Force be with you," and there was a dark side, and so it was. But how about in your universe?
So in my universe, religion is important to the main character. He's very he believes in his sacred teachings, and he uses them as guidelines for his values. But then he has to break his values occasionally, and it kind of creates inner turmoil. Now, in terms of is there a force aspect, it's more or less magical elements that are out in the universe that are unexplored. So there isn't an all great force or powerful force out there. However, there's magical elements like maybe an ancient civilization was able to manipulate, solar energy and create a type of magic system that doesn't exist anymore. Or maybe there was a species that understood the chemical elements of rare ores that were on asteroids that turned their weapons into these great elemental pieces, and it's a lost art. I try to take, like, if you look at alchemy, for example, it's a lost system of elements that we don't know how to do anymore. And I wanted to incorporate those magical elements that they're out there, they're undiscovered, that he has to occasionally come across, and it's very mysterious. And it kind of gets that reader very engaged because it's not right in your face all the time. Sometimes it's very subtle. So that's how I've kind of written it in the story.
Well, this would make a great video game too.
Yeah, I think so. I think if I put a lot of action into the story itself, and you can play as if you wanted to play as a warrior and fight against maybe aliens, or go on hunt. If you want to go hunt, I think you could definitely do that. So I think that's a great point.
Well, even just flying around the galaxy or
Yeah.
flying around the universe in your little spaceship, going from planet to planet, discovering things, finding the lost art of creating gold out of nothing, or
Right.
which is what alchemy was, or different stuff like that. You could do tons of stuff with it. I gotta ask you though, where did all this come from? Were you like sitting around having some peyote one day and it just kind of came to you? How did all this come about?
It took years of daydreaming about just different universes and writing my ideas down, and eventually coming to a point where after writing so many ideas down over time, just wanting to put it together into a story. So, I'm a salesperson, right? I have to support my family, and it's what I do during the day. So if an idea catches me, or I'm sitting there waiting and I'm tired, and I'm daydreaming, I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. I'll write it down, and then it'll kind of manifest into an idea eventually, and then I could write it.
I was in sales for a long time, and there is a lot of downtime.
Yeah.
There's a lot of time for you to just sit and contemplate while you're waiting for that dumb vice president to get off the phone, and he's scheduled for 2:30. It's now 3:15, and you're still sitting there waiting for him because he's off dilly-dallying somewhere else. It's a great time to create.
Yeah, you're right. I'm in medical sales, so sometimes I would sit outside an emergency room or maybe an ICU, and you're right. I'd be waiting there for 2 hours. So what else? What am I gonna? I'm not just gonna sit there and stare. I would think about things and try to be creative. So you're right. There is a lot of downtime, but I try to make use of my time when I was doing that.
And this is just an aside. As a former salesperson, when you make an appointment, when you accept an appointment for a period of time, would you please honor the people that have taken the time to get into their car, or sometimes to get into an airplane, check into a hotel, come to your facility and wait for you, and you are an hour late to your meeting? Would you please knock that crap off? That's not fair.
Yeah, I will. Many times has that happened to me, so I wholeheartedly agree.
Well, and plus the fact that when you're a sales guy and you're traveling, you'll be spending. And I decided to quit traveling when this happened to me. I was spending a Tuesday night in Siloam Springs, Arkansas, at the Motel 6, having room service from McDonald's, watching the CNN, and I said, "This is not a life. This is a life for me." Anyway. But congratulations on what you do. Now, do you do it locally? Do you travel all over the place?
Locally. So I did travel all over the place, but currently I'm local, which is great. But yeah, you're right. Sometimes you travel 4 hours and they wouldn't even show up. So I'm glad it's at least local.
Yep. One time I flew to LA from Seattle because I was going to meet with a national restaurant chain.
Mhm.
I was selling dead chicken at the time. And I go to the hotel. I stay in the hotel. I call to verify the appointment. They said, "Oh, is that tomorrow?" "I'm sorry, we're not available tomorrow. So can we make it Wednesday?" "Okay, well, we'll make it Wednesday." And so I go there on Wednesday, and they said, "Oh, I'm sorry, we had an emergency. We had to cancel." "Didn't anybody call you?" And it's like, I flew all the way there, rented a car, stayed in a hotel for 3 days because I couldn't get back that day, and I didn't even see anybody. And that's the life of a traveling salesman.
Yep. Yep. It's very frustrating. I I completely agree with you. It's at the minimum, just try to give us a heads up so we don't have to waste so much time. That's the biggest thing, is just wasting time.
Yes. Now, are you finding that post-COVID and post-COVID that your time is better spent because you're not having to go be in front of people so much? You can do it on Zoom and you can do it from home?
Yeah, I mean, some of it is hybrid because of that. Things changed after COVID, so being able to conduct the meeting remotely, you can do a lot more of that now, and like we're doing right now. It's you can have a meaningful conversation and still, you could be worlds apart.
Yeah. Speaking of worlds apart, what part of the world are you in?
I'm in Northeast Pennsylvania.
So it is 6:29. Is that right?
29.
Oh, very, very nice. Northeast Pennsylvania. It's a very nice area.
Yeah, we got a lot of mountains out here, and it's still freezing.
Well, it is only March.
Yeah.
So it's cold here too. It's only 53.
Oh, okay.
But it just is what it is. By the way, we're talking with Jordan Broody, and he's an author. He's written he's written the book the video game, the screenplay, the movie, the concert, and the art gallery all in one thing. And he's got. I would love to see. I've been listening to your music, by the way. You're a terrific composer. We need to take our station break, but when we come back, I want to talk about your musical career and if you think that has legs and there are things that you want to do with that. Can we do that?
Sure.
Okay, we're talking with Jordan Broody. We'll be right back. Stay with us. You're listening to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
As you go about your daily life, look closer. As you gather with family and friends who love and support you, look closer. There are youth right in your community who don't have the home, warmth, and healing you have. So look closer. Every year across America, a staggering 4.2 million youth are homeless or trafficked. And for 50 years, Covenant House has worked relentlessly to keep them safe and protected. Tonight, 2,000 young people will sleep safely in a Covenant House bed. And tomorrow, they will wake up surrounded by love. They get clean clothes, hot meals, medical care, and a safe place to sleep. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In sites across America to help them fulfill the great promise of their lives. So look closer at Covenant House. To help or get help, go to covenanthouse.org.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. I'm so glad you're here. And we're talking with Jordan Broody, and he's the author of Arconus. And it is a whole nother place. It's a galaxy for that he has created in his book. He's created music around it. There's art around it. It is pretty remarkable. I got to ask you, based on that last commercial, in your universe that you've written about, is there homelessness and kids that are being trafficked and all that kind of stuff, or have they gotten away and around that problem?
There are crime syndicates that are in very dangerous parts of the galaxy. So I've incorporated realistic approaches in terms of things going on like that. They haven't gone away. It's just a different form. You know what I mean? There are still syndicates and crime organizations that are still doing nefarious things. And I think that, incorporating that into the book, and sometimes when you're pitted against, such a valiant character that, he might come across someone like that, and it might be the wrong situation, and it kind of leads to good reading.
Yes, indeed. Or a good fight, or both.
Yeah, or both.
So your music, you've been doing it since you were 5. The music and please go to arconus.com, which is ARKONUS.com, and you can listen to the music. You can, I dare say, even buy the music. You can buy the book from his website. You can do all of that. And I encourage you to do. He makes a little bit more money than if you buy it from someplace else. But they can buy the book from you on your website. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, it links off of Amazon and Barnes and Noble.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I'll buy it from anyone. Buy it from those guys. Or I have a better idea. This is just me. If you have a mom and pop in your area, a small bookstore that they are in it because they love books and they want to help promote reading and stuff, but they don't make very much money. But go buy it from them. They'll order it, and you can have it brought in, and then they can make a little bit of money, and you're doing a good thing by a mom and pop bookseller in your area. At least that's me. What do you think about that idea?
I think that's great. I mean, I would love to be published one day and get out into all the bookstores, but you're right. They can't order it. And that would be great because not only would be helping that small business, but, it's good for the community as well.
That's right. And booksellers, if somebody comes in and wants to buy the book, buy 3 to 5 copies of them and put 3 to 5 or 4 to 3 to 4 on the shelf. Sell one, and then that way you'll have that book there. It's the title, and the cover art is just magnificent.
Thank you. Yeah, he did a great job. He was a Polish artist, and he really kind of grasped the emotion of what I was looking for. You know, he's in a dark cave, but it's not a cave. It's more metaphorical, right? Like you could see the rock face. It looks like a hand is almost gripping around the warrior who's trying to lift the light up in the air to just try to stop darkness from coming to him. So he did a great job in terms of illustrating that.
Now I'm noticing that they're wearing uniforms, they're wearing helmets. Are those contained helmets because of the atmosphere that they're in?
Yes. So, yeah, there are atmospheres they can breathe in, but in terms, in generality, yes, he has to wear self-containing systems in the book to navigate and to, go on alien worlds.
That's pretty remarkable. And you've got I gotta tell you, you gotta go to arkonus.com, arconus.com, and look at these pictures. They're just phenomenal. He did an outstanding job based upon what you wanted him to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I love good art, and artists, I being able to put this all together into one story. That's what I wanted. I wanted to make it feel like you were part of a universe or watching a movie. If you mix the art and the music and the story together, it really brings it home for the reader.
That is really cool. Where does the mushroom house come in? Let me explain what that is. There's a house, and it's underneath the cap of a mushroom. And it's got lights in it, and it's where is that in the book somewhere?
Yeah, so there are alien worlds where he's traveling through jungles and forests where he'll come across, very old species that live in these houses that have faces in them, or maybe the structure is the structure of like a plant body, but maybe it might have an old face on it. So that's kind of where that comes from, and he has to interact with them and trying to figure out where things are and artifacts are. So yes, that's in the book. Actually, it's in the second book as well, but that's where it comes from.
Where are we in the development of the second and third books?
So I have them written. The second book is being edited right now. So I will be working on the fixes and things like that. The third book, I have to add a little bit of information. It's mostly written, and then I can begin the editing process on that as well.
Do you find that the writing of the book is what stimulates you, but all the other stuff you got to do, the editing and the checking, and to make sure that it's sequential and makes sense to other people, is that something you enjoy, or is that kind of a necessary evil?
That's necessary. Those are, that's the grind, the things that you have to do after the fact. So it's very time consuming, and it's exhausting. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you have to read the book 10 times, and you pick up an error per read, and then you have to go to an editor, and then you have to go through their notes, and then it's just a very long grind at the end of the day. And yeah, I think that it just comes with the territory.
Well, especially a novel like yours. So how many pages is the first book, by the way?
So the first one is about 435 pages.
Just to edit, just to read that'll take a while. To edit it would take even a longer time.
Yes. Yeah, it's definitely a long process. Now, I'll probably shorten up the second and third book just to buy a little bit, but because it's such a very long process. But you're right, it definitely takes a long time.
So, does your family and friends know what you're doing or what you've done?
Yeah, they support me in what I've done, and they think it's great. What I'm trying to accomplish. It's a very difficult thing to try to put this out in the world, and to try to make it a success and really create something original. So that's something I've always wanted to do, is just create something original, whether it's the music or the story or whatever. I just want it to be original content, because sometimes you get a lot of things that are regurgitated or redone a million times. I just wanted something that was, original, something that I created, to give back to the community of people that love this stuff.
Well, that's really, there is in a lot of art forms or a lot of books, a formula. Boy meets girl, girl, and they follow this formula all the way through. And they may have a different background and different dialogue, but it kind of is sort of the same thing. I get the sense that yours is completely different.
Yes. Yeah. I tried to be a bit more unorthodox. I don't want someone to be able to say, "Oh, I know exactly what's going to happen next," or the formula is they're going to fall in love or whatever. I want it to be a bit more unorthodox. So that's kind of how I went with it.
Well, it's really, I don't know how you guys in general, authors, but you specifically, how do you even think of all this stuff? I mean, there's a lot of stuff here to think about.
Right. It just takes time. I mean, years and years of contemplating and building up situations. I guess, that's sometimes it drives you a little crazy. You know what I mean? It definitely does, especially if you don't do it full time. So there was times where I drove myself crazy thinking about stuff, and it burnt me out, and you get tired, and you have to redo it, and it just takes time.
How long did the first book come out go in the writing stage when you went from idea? Now, what is your process? Is it a storyboard? Is it character bios? Some people build out the characters and then they put them into a situation and then they just let them go. I don't know how that works, but that's what they do. What is your process?
So my process is a little bit of both, right? So I try to utilize, so I'll have like a tablet where I built like a kind of like a draft storyboard and characters with their bios, and I'll mix those together, and I'll be able, then I kind of create like a tree of information of that storyboard, and then kind of go from there and start, and then I'm able to write the story by following different points that I want to hit throughout the storyboard.
Now, it just struck me, a book of that size, 400 plus pages. Do you forget what's in chapter 2 when you get to chapter 15, and you have to make sure that whatever you were doing in chapter 2, that it's following along, and by the time you get to chapter 15 it all makes sense?
Yeah, that's where having to read it over 5 times to try to figure out what I did in chapter 3 matches up with chapter 20. So you are you're definitely right, because sometimes I might miss something, like he picked up an object that he wants to use, but then I have to make sure that he's going to use that 10 chapters down the line. So yeah, that takes a lot of going over.
And you know that there's going to be somebody who's going to read the book who picks out those sorts of things.
Yep. What happened here? Exactly.
And they're going to email you and say, "Did you forget about the shtick that we were going to do with the stick and the log and the thing and the and stuff?" So I imagine that makes it a little tough.
Yeah.
Well, but but you are very gifted, and the music, I tell you, ladies and gentlemen, have you sent your music to a producer or somebody to talk to about putting it into an album and putting it out there independently of the book?
So I'm probably gonna. I haven't done that. No, I kind of just made that like the icing on the cake. And it was never the main focus of the book. It was something I added in addition to it. But I am gonna publish it on like Apple Music and Spotify, probably myself. But that would be a great thing. If I'm able to get published one day, to add that as someone could publish the music as well.
I would think. Now I'm going to try something here, so you tell me if this works. I've got Dark Moon up here, and I'm going to see if we can play a little bit of it, and so our audience can kind of hear what it sounds like. So wave at me if you can't hear it, okay?
Okay. I can't hear it right now.
Okay, well, it was a thought.
You tried.
I tried, and sometimes it just doesn't work out the way I want to. But that means that you need to go to the website, which is arconus.com. That's ARKONUS.com. And there's a music page, and there is 10 different compositions here that and they're all of them are instrumental, but they are in the in the in the frame of like John Williams and I forgot his name, the guy who wrote Rocky.
It wasn't Hans Zimmer. What? No, that I don't think he wrote Rocky.
Oh, I'll remember. Anyway, somebody will email me and tell me, you idiot, that's just who it is. Oh, Conti. Bill Conti. I knew I'd come up with it. It's my old brain just takes a minute for the synapses to fire. So, well, congratulations. And it's the third book. I know it's done, but is that starting to go through the editing process? And how long of a process does that all take?
That takes months. The editing process is a grueling process that takes months because you have to go back and fix it. Then they have to check it. Then you go back and it's back and forth. So I'd say we're a couple months out of the second book. And then I'd say maybe a good 10 months for the third book because it takes a while for that to get done. So at least the second book will be out this year.
Do you end up having a love-hate relationship with your editor? Don't answer that. We need to take a break, but when we come back, I want you to answer. Do you have a love-hate relationship with, what do you mean I got to change this? This is why we did it. And to have that argument. So you're listening to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald, and we'll be right back after this quick message, just 30 seconds. Just wait there. You'll be fine.
They have your eyes. They have your ears. They have your smile. Now all they need is a little more of your time. Make a difference in your child's life, because anyone can be a father. It takes time to be a dad.
And welcome everybody to Positive Talk Radio. My name is Kevin McDonald, and you're listening to the Brushwood Media Network, and we're so pleased to be here with everybody. By the way, if you want to find out more about me and some of the work that I've been doing with Positive Talk, you can always go to positivetalkradio.net and find out more. You can also go to the brushwoodmedia.com site and go to our archives. I've only been doing this since January, and I've got over 50 shows in the archive already. So you can go there and listen to some of the shows that we've done for Brushwood. We're just pleased as punch to be here. It's pretty amazing. In my world, I have over 850 podcasts. I know that you've been doing a lot of work getting the word out about your books. How many podcasts have you done?
Probably, I just started the process, so I've only done probably about 4 or 5.
Oh, very good. Well, I'm glad I think you're going to like this one. We do. Lindsay, who's the publicist, says that we do a pretty good job.
Yeah, it's been great so far. Thank you.
Oh, you're more than welcome. So getting back to you and your book and what it's all been like. When people read your book, I know you've probably given it to family and friends. And has anybody said, that's a 400-page book, I can't read that? Or are they what kind of I imagine somebody said that.
Yeah, maybe one of my friends said that, oh, that's over 400 pages. I don't know if I could read all that right now. I have had, that it's only been like one person, but yeah, it has happened once.
And the response from the people who actually take the time to read the book has been
positive, very positive. They really appreciate the time, the world building and the excitement, the action and everything that was gone into the book, and they want to know what happens to the characters, and it's been positive so far.
By the way, I had to ask, are you a gamer?
Yeah.
Well, then you know that there are games that are very similar to this, where you're building the universe and the planets and going from different places and following different paths and creating the whole big thing. I think this would be a great video game.
Yeah, no, definitely. I would love to see this on a video game, and because it makes it really interactive for the. Not only can you get to go through the story, but you get to actually play as the character, and I think that sometimes that was exciting, and it creates a universe in itself. So I would love that.
I'm just amazed that you could write. Of course, I guess I think if you think about it, when Lucas wrote Star Wars and stuff, it was kind of that same thing where it was just so totally out of the box. Although he did treat it more like a 1930s serial show. Do you remember what those were like? How could you remember? You weren't even alive then. Let me explain. Those serials were like, they would be a half-hour show, and it'd be like, and it would, one of them was, gosh, he had a rocket ship, and they would go around, and then he would get into trouble, and then it would be like, stay tuned next week to see if he survives this kind of thing, and that's kind of how he wrote that, as well as Spielberg with Raiders of the Lost Ark. But yours is a little bit different than that, I suspect, in that you're trying not to use the formula. You kind of created your own formula.
Yeah. I think it's kind of follows more of like a modern day epic film formula, and I kind of played it out like that, so it could be adapted pretty well for the story. So it kind of plays out like you're like, oh, I felt like I just watched like a modern trailer or movie, and play out. That's kind of how I wanted it to read.
Oh, very, very cool. By the way,
Yeah.
are the bird and the dog best friends?
To my knowledge, no.
Do you know what kind of bird it is?
I think it's a parakeet. I'm at my parents' house.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, you could hear a bird in the background, and I just needed to let everybody know that we could hear that too. And but birds, so the birds in the cage, do they ever fly around the house?
No, it just stays it'll stay in the cage. It's most comfortable there, from what I understand.
Well, if there was a dog that wanted my butt, and was chasing me around the house, I'd want to be in the cage too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So by the way, we are talking with Jordan Broody, and he's the author of Arconus. It is a book that is worth buying and go to his website where you can listen to all of his music, which is really beautiful music that he has done himself, and the artwork is amazing. And then you can go buy the book and explore a brand new universe. At the end of book 1, did you know that there were going to be 3, and so you left it as a bit of a cliffhanger for 2 and 3, or did the story wrap up and then you begin a new story going forward?
No, I planned it out to be a 3-book series, so
okay.
It closes out the first section, but it leaves it open for the second book.
Oh, very good. And so congratulations. I think that's wonderful. If there's anybody in our audience who's a young budding writer, but you don't know where to begin, don't know how to get started, what advice do you have for them?
My advice is stay consistent. The hardest part is actually just sitting down and doing it. You could have the idea, but it's a tough process to stick through. The writing process, the editing process is just go out there and do it. If you have the talent and you have an idea, you gotta go through the grind and get it done. I mean, that's the hardest part, is grinding it out. So I just say stick with it.
And when you get frustrated with it, set it down for a little bit and then pick it up again, or do you work through the frustration?
Yeah, no, I think that in the creative process, you need to let your mind rest. So I think that, if you need to sit down and take a break, then take a break, but just make sure you go back to it. And, you just don't leave it there for 5 years. You go back and you finish what you started.
When you have creative ideas or what you would call intuition, what time of day does that happen for you? Is it in the middle of the night? Is it while you're sitting there waiting for that stupid VP to show up, or when does your creative process really flow?
For me, it's typically at night when I'm, or if I'm waiting for that stupid VP. Uh, you know, that's when it pops up for me. So I guess for me, it's any time of the day. It'll pop up, and I have to quickly write down the notes that I have so I don't forget.
Now, when you're sitting there in that office waiting for the guy who was supposed to be there at 2:30 and it's now 3:15 and he's not there yet? Are you replaying the story as yet written in your mind and viewing what you need to add to it next? Is that part of
Yeah,
it too?
yeah, actually, I do. I kind of, if I have some dead time, I will picture, hey, this is what's happening next. This is what I can't wait to write down, or this is what I want to happen in the next section of the book. So I will kind of play that out as, if I have time. Yes.
And by the way, I just have to say this because I've mentioned it a couple of times. I have the utmost respect for vice presidents of companies, and really appreciate the work that you guys do. However, if you show up on time for the poor sales rep, I would greatly appreciate it because he's working his heart out just to get there to see you, and that's a common courtesy. And so I'm not bashing VPs. I'm just saying, be kinder to the sales guys. They work hard.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's fair.
Yes. What kind of equipment do you sell?
Well, I sold wound care devices for wound care. Now I sell injectable medication. So it's kind of a different mix of products, but it's been great.
I take injectable medication, but it's not legal. That is what is it? No, I'm kidding.
Oh.
So in any event, we just have a minute left, and I just want to say Jordan Broody has been our guest. And if you go to his website, which is arconis.com, that's where you find the book and the music and the artwork, and everything that you need is there. And buy the book, and it's part 1 of part 3, so you're gonna have to wait. How long do they have to wait for part 2 once they finish part 1?
I would say about a couple of months, maybe 3 or 4 months for part 2.
Perfect. So you'll just get done with 1, and number 2 will come out, and it'll be perfect for you.
Yep.
And then by the time you get done with number 2, number 3 will be closer. That's probably coming out in 25, I would imagine.
Early, yeah. Early 25.
That is just awesome. So I want to thank Jordan for being here. Have you enjoyed your time here, sir?
I've definitely enjoyed my time. I really appreciate the time you gave me and all the great questions, and it's been great. Thank you, Kevin.
You handled it beautifully.
Thank you.
And good luck with the book. I hope it sells 1 million copies and is on the New York Times bestseller list for science fiction and stuff like that. So thank you very much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been great.
Hey, thanks for listening to this episode of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. We are a production of kmmedia.pro, a full-service media company. Whether it is audio, video, shorts, or longer pieces, we're able to take each project from beginning to final product within your time frame and on budget. Visit kmmedia.pro for more details about us and to get started on your project. We also would like to thank the Brushwood Media Network for all their support. Go to brushwoodmedianetwork.com to find out more about them and the quality shows featured on the network. Until then, we'll see you next time. My name again is Kevin McDonald, and please remember, be kind to one another because each other's all we've got.